everybody, it's Andy from Snow Camp Shore with Paul from the Ski Instructor Academy here in Kaprun, Austria. And for the first time, I've got the clipboard and I've got the computer.
Give me that back. I've lost control.
It's not often that Mr. Simpson loses control, is it? Oh. Now, this is a good one because we've had so many comments and questions which you are on your chosen subject, which is fitness, and we're going to go through them all because Paul has commented back to everybody that we would cover off as many of these as we could. So we're going to do some of them now, and the first part, or the first kind of way into this, is very recently I saw 2 days ago a post about skiing to get fit. So actually going skiing to become stronger, to become more cardiovascular, robust, to train your core, to train your quads, etc., etc. And I said to you off camera, I've always been a strong believer of you get fit to play sport, you don't play sport to get fit. Thoughts, Mr. Simpson?
Yeah, I mean, in general, that's a nice way to round it up and put it together. I think it's important that people understand that every sport has different challenges. In something like skiing, boarding, it has tremendous amount of challenges in not just in the fact that, you know, from strength or from what people might see as cardio fitness, but from other parameters such as agility, mobility, stability. And that's the problem. And if, let's say, you think that you can just ski to get fit, then yes, generally you could argue that could be the case, because I think in one comment I saw, you know, somebody argued the fact, I think what you're talking about, oh, it's great for core stability. It's and actually from a scientific point of view, when people ski well, now I'm talking about the top couple of percent here, they've even compared it to doing like 500 meters on a rowing machine. Now, when we work on, you know, rowing, for example, that's very much a heavy demand on the body. So that, you know, they recognize that skiing can put a huge load onto the body's central nervous system. There's no doubt about it. My question would be to that person is your body actually ready for
Exactly. And this was one of my points, was to put something out there that says go skiing and you'll get fit. If I'm not fit and I go skiing, I've got a very high risk of injury.
You've got a higher risk, definitely, yeah. Especially if you know, as many people do, have a lot more upper body weight than they should have. I mean, generally humans are balanced that way anyway, but you know, when people have excess upper body weight and they lack, let's say, certain stability or mobility lower down, the risk on the knee is higher, the risk on the hip injury, and obviously the risk on the lower back is higher as well. So you may start skiing, but what you might end up is, after your first ski days with the DOMs, like this delayed onset muscle soreness and things which then ruin the rest of your holiday, because literally, you know, I've had guests like that come on holiday and they've said straight away, the difference this year, because I wasn't fit, is phenomenal. Like I am stiff, I'm aching, my calves are locked up, this, that, the other. Whereas the year before I was fit or whatever, I felt so much better. And it brings me on to the difficulty of always when I'm coaching, obviously because my background's different to a ski coach or ski trainer, I'm always looking first at simple things. You know, I'm watching somebody, how do they walk towards me? How do they pick their ski poles up off the ground? How do they get out off the chairlift? How do they manipulate and move their body? Because straight away it's giving me some clues as to whether they want to make the correct technical movements, the mechanical movements required for skiing or not. Because as I've said before, and on a lot of my fitness videos that you can see, is where I talk about, let's say, somebody picking something up off the floor. We tend to hinge over as we get older because we don't want to use the ankle, knee and hip and squat down like a young child would do to pick something up. We simply fold over at the hips, pick something up, and that's obviously where you get a lot of these back problems, because people, you know, the back pops. And that's because to the brain, this is the much easier method.
It's the most simple,
So when people ski, why would they suddenly start using the ankle, knee and hip when all they're used to doing is hinging and swinging from the upper body? So it gives me clues straight away. I mean, the other problem is as we get older, especially, and I've seen this a lot in the younger generation, is one of the main factors that I would train when dealing with somebody, just away from skiing in any sport, is speed. People don't have speed anymore of movement. So, I think I've seen people talk about like plyometrics, for example, etc. These are things which would help with speed. How often do people go for a jog as opposed to doing 10 sprints? Most people will go for a jog. They'll just want to go for a little jog out and come back after 40, 50 minutes. They don't want to go to their local park and run up a hill 10, 15 times, sprinting full gas. But which is more beneficial? And this is the issue. If you're finding yourself avoiding sessions that are demanding on you and doing Doris sessions, as I like to call them, where you're just like plodding along, and going in and doing your wobbly machine at the gym and chatting to your friend next to you, then the curve is slowly going in down over and you're losing that speed, that burst, that power. And if we look at skiing, it's all about deflection, loading up and deflecting. And that requires you to have a huge spring resource within your body. So the question is just ski to get better at skiing or get fit? No. Mm-hmm. You definitely need something in the background if you're taking it seriously. Hey, if you're not, and you just want to pot it, then just be aware of that.
But if you're a recreational skier, and this goes back to previous things we've talked about, who hasn't got time to stay fit, do any conditioning before the holiday, then your holiday is going to suffer for that, and therefore you should do. And
you are going to suffer.
Yeah, and you should do some element of training before that trip.
You should definitely do some element of training.
That also was Doublethink. Thanks, Doublethink. He was saying skiing is surely the best training for skiing. I just go to the local indoor snowdome, which obviously we're kind of saying
great.
That's not the case.
In fairness, we don't know if he's in an active job. Mm-hmm. If he actually does do other things, he probably does do other things, and he's just making a sweeping comment to say, look, skiing's the best source of getting fit, and it's a great source. That's why it's promoted. And even look at the elderly generation in ski resorts. Some of them can off ski still, and you can clearly see it does help their fitness. But equally, those people walk a lot in the summer, or they do other
hiking
things
and biking and all sorts of stuff,
etc.
So then, we've had another one from Das Alpengluhen. So Alpine Glow, apparently that means. Okay. And he's basically said that buying a speed bike was one of the best investments he's done. And he's referring back to one of our other videos about getting fit for the ski season. And he said he also uses a TRX trainer.
Oh, yes.
Any advice on TRXs?
Yeah, there was some videos, a lot of videos up actually about TRX, because you were asking where they were. Yeah. I did remove a lot of videos. My plan is when I get the time this season is to start to upload new videos that are a bit more updated with sound and better quality and things, because the quality's not that good. TRX, there are very few tools, if you like, that I would recommend people buying. I'm all against these things you see sold on these media televisions and stuff, like, buy this latest ab rolling device or whatever it is. But a TRX had a certain advantage. It makes much sense that it's great for stability. It's great for core strength. It allowed you to do all these. Now, in case somebody doesn't know what a TRX is, Andy, maybe you should explain to them what it is.
So, from my limited knowledge, it is also known as a sling trainer, and you can attach it to your door or to any other fixed point, and then you can do all different kind of resistant exercises whilst holding onto it, from squats to press-ups to all sorts of stuff. Yeah,
it was big. I got one sent to me when they first started TRX, and it was big in the military in America. And they sent me two, and they were great because, again, you look at the military there, they're in Iraq or wherever.
Yeah, I think it's portability, isn't it?
Yes.
Literally, it packs into a very small, kind of wash bag size bag, so you can take it wherever you want. And I remember, so I said to you earlier off camera, where are the TRX videos gone? Yeah. Because you went to Spain pre my first
Yes.
course, and you were putting out
so it's quite a long time ago, isn't it? Yeah.
you were putting out TRX videos, and I've got a TRX. Well, I've got a sling trainer because a TRX is obviously a brand.
Expensive, yeah.
I've got a sling trainer in a box in a cupboard, and only the other day was like, I should really get that out, but I couldn't find a video, so I didn't get it out.
The issue again is I have to come back to TRX. Like a lot of other things, as soon as you get into things that require very good awareness of your body, can be quite dangerous in a way, because what I usually find with the TRX is somebody does not have the necessary strength to maintain the spine where it should be, for example, and they end up going into overextension or local extension, particularly in between the T-spine and the lumbar spine. So they end up with a really nasty arch because they collapse, for example, when they're doing their press-up position in the slingshot. So you have to be cautious of making sure that, again, you have the right core strength, the right understanding of the product, and the right understanding of your body. And a TRX can be of a great benefit then, because it can simulate a lot of movements. And certainly what it can do is stress your body from different axes. So particularly of interest with a TRX is when you start using it to stress your body in the rotational axis, because a lot of skiing requires you to have, the ability to remain stable when you've got this rotational force. A lot of times nowadays, if your TRX is too much for you to get your head round, certainly just even having some gym bands. Getting a set of gym bands is good.
He actually says resistant bands as well. So he's using a TRX and resistant bands. And he actually goes on to say that he now feels fitter and less pain than he has before. He also does 30 minutes of stretching an evening. And he has been instructed by a friend who is a physiotherapist and a personal trainer. So he probably isn't making those TRX mistakes that we've said, which is good. And he's now a big believer that less is only more. If it brings us to
less is only more, especially as you get older. And it is targeted again. It's quite funny, Andy, because it actually made me remember when I was in Spain. I was a doctor friend of mine who's a very, very good physiotherapist, and you remember I was taking the piss about people wearing things between their toes and stuff like that.
Yes.
I get we've been out biking actually, and then I went down for a session with him, and there he is, wearing things between his toes, like plastic things, jamming his toes apart, because he does a lot of barefoot running. And I said to him, I said, what do you think of them? And he says, that's great. He says, when I'm, dealing with clients on the massage table and whatever, I put them between my toes and it really helps and stuff like that. But actually, when we were discussing about, because obviously a lot of focus at the minute is because of, again, Instagram and things, people are getting the understanding how important the feet are, the tripod of the foot, and how you need this big platform below you, and how much ankle movement you need, and dorsiflexion, and etc., and big toe being able to push down. I get all that. But what I want to do is maybe point out an interesting fact, that your feet still require the connection with the central nervous system in the brain, which tends to come from the eyes. And a lot of people overlook the eyes. And I have brought it up a few times in some of our ski analysis programs where I've talked about acuity of eye line and how important the eyes are to direction and movement, etc. And there are eye movement drills that are very good at resetting you. And why you're doing that is you're basically resetting the central nervous system as well. So when you see somebody that has a problem, and usually it's like a hip problem, or it's often in men a shoulder problem, you can see they've got certain problems, either they're internally rotating from the shoulder or it doesn't rotate and go back down. Resetting their eyes, strangely enough, can solve and help to solve the problem, as opposed to where everybody's focusing at the minute, because it's the new trend. That's like everybody's buzzword is, we've got to look from the feet up over. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying, just be aware of how important these things are in your head, that they actually have probably a bigger bearing than you think on what's going on in your feet, is what you're doing with your eyes. And it can be very important where you're getting imbalances within your training. And as we get older, and vision changes, peripheral vision changes, and etc., doing eye drills can have I work on doing them up and down, left to right, for example, up and down to work my lat. My weird, isn't it? I go up and down with my eyeballs, and this works this left lat because it doesn't switch on properly. Andy's trying it. But why do that? Well, that together with the right work in the sternocleidoid mastoid, this neck muscle, and the pectoral here helps me to get the shoulder movement that's lacking in my left shoulder by doing these reset drills. Wow. So there's all these weird things going on, and this brings me on to his comment about stretching, because I can see he says I stretch 30 minutes. Yeah. Which is great, because I think he says he does it in front of the news. And this comes to the problem of where we say somebody is, busy with family life, work life, that they never get time to do anything. And I know what it's like. If you sit down, it's fatal, because that's it now. You're going to sit in front of the telly until you then do what? Roll into bed. But if you can do what that guy's doing, actually get up and say, look, I'm watching a series of whatever. I might as well do some of my little stretches in between. Yeah. And this brings me to the next problem, because I get how important it is, and I keep harping on about you need to be strong. So to be skier, I have to look at a skier, let's say, we'll stay with the topic, and I have to say to myself, can this person not do, let's say, short turns actively? Because actually it's nothing to do with the fact they can't hold their body down the line, or they can't rotate their feet, or they've got it's the fact that they're just not strong. They've just got no strength in them. They're just weak. I have to look at that and see, is that the problem? Because if it is, then everything else becomes, again, an issue of saying, well, what's the point? What's the point of all this stretching, doing stability exercises if you haven't got any strength? And a lot of the times is if I see somebody, let's say, doing some of the new popular things on Instagram, like men shoulder problems. So what do they do? What about a heads up kettlebell, for example? Have you seen that? They hold a kettlebell and upside down. Yeah. The idea is to help stabilize your shoulder. Now, my question is when you're doing that with the light weight on your arms, is it even necessary? Because it might be, for example, necessary for me on my left shoulder to improve its stability. But what's the point of doing 3 sets on my left shoulder that take me 5 minutes, and then doing 3 sets on the right where I don't have a problem with stability? I've just now wasted, if you like, 5 minutes of my time because there's no issue there. And unless you know where the issues are in your body, is this a diagonal issue running from my right glute through to my left shoulder or vice versa? What's the point in doing stability exercises? Which is why I would highly recommend you get a coach who understands the human body to target areas and specifically say to you, hey, if you switch on your right glute, you're going to notice a difference. And, when you do this with people and you ask them to activate, and this is probably with most people, they have inhibition in the glute. They fail to activate the glutes. So they over-activate the quadricep or the hamstring before the glute. What you find is when you ask them to activate it, they can't, they don't, they think, they'll go, oh, there, and you go, that's not your glute, that's your hamstring. And until somebody actually makes you do the right movement, and then you repeat that movement, you're not going to get any benefit from it. And just going from left to right, and left shoulder, left glute, right glute, ankle left, ankle right. Why? If you have no problems with your left ankle, why are you spending valuable time where you could just build strength?
It's funny because we got a comment from Helen Goddard-Nichols, and she basically commented on also the getting ready to ski fitness video and said, good to hear a fitness conversation which brings out positive aspect of eccentric moves. My focus when teaching Pilates is about balancing the use of the muscles and the client's awareness, which is kind of what you're talking about now, of what is happening. And then she then moves that into whether it be HIIT training, weight training, etc., for a more sport-specific training. And then she says, thanks, guys, for getting the message out there. Now, we also had another one, got on the eccentric thing, about mogul training. Someone was asking for what exercises can they do in the gym at home to assist with the fitness for moguls.
Yeah. So, again, this comes down to, it depends. How old are you? What's your sporting background?
Can you ski moguls?
Etc. Yeah. Because again, moguls are demanding. They're a demanding skill set. So if I look at skill sets, let's give you one that people could possibly understand. It surely is easier to walk slow than to walk slightly faster, to jog, to run, to sprint over hurdles. They're skill sets that increase the likelihood that you're going to start getting a mechanical problem. Same as if I said, let's do a squat, let's do a back squat, let's do a front squat, let's do an overhead squat. They all have challenges. Moguls has a very demanding challenge on most people, and mostly because they're doing it wrong, because they're mistimed a lot of the time. So they have to expend energy that a good mogul runner doesn't. They have to take shock force that a good mogul skier doesn't. And that will in turn put a lot of pressure on your body. And I keep whinging on about something, this central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. When we stress our central nervous system, we don't realize we're doing it and how tired we are. So for example, me going like that, Andy, with my fingers and doing that eye drill, if I do that for 40 times with my eyes, that stresses the central nervous system tremendously. That would be like you doing a HIIT workout for your body that I've just done with my eyes. And equally, if I do, let's say, something that people can refer to, a deadlift, and I do heavy deadlifts, I can deadlift 150, 160 kilo from the floor. If I do that, the effect on the central nervous system is 4 days. 4 days of after effect that I have to be aware of when regenerating. Whereas if I did a light bike ride or whatever, the central nervous system's not going to be stressed in the same way. Now, moguls stress the central nervous system because there's a lot of coordination going on, a lot of agility, and a lot of surprises. There's a lot of things, that are catching people out. So the simulation of that in the dry land is difficult. However, what you can say is, obviously, how fast can I bend and stretch my legs is going to be a big issue. And this is why a lot of people can't do moguls, because in their head, they think they can move their ankle, knee, and hip as quick as that rhythm of moguls in front of them and the steepness of the hill, and they just can't.
In fact, they can't. No,
they can't. They can't do it in the dry land. If you can't literally go through a range of movement where you're able to spring with your ankle, knee, and hip relatively quick timed, I would argue you don't have the fast twitch fibers, you don't have the memory in the muscles to be able to ski a mogul run. You don't have that flexibility, stability, mobility to be able to deflect that quick. And this is where the issue is. So if I was saying to somebody about mogul training, it depends, but certainly what you're going to do if you strengthen your legs is you're going to give yourself the flexibility to cheat them. But remember, that cost that's what we talked about before, about technical aspect. You can cheat, and therefore you stop using the technical aspect of skiing. You can risk not doing the strength stuff, but in turn, try to do something more related to power and speed and agility. Now, that would be my strongest suggestion, because how much strength you actually need to ski the moguls isn't as much as, let's say, you're doing, you're a downhill Super G racer, you've seen their legs. Or you're a velodrome bike rider. You don't need the legs like that. You need quick legs. So think quick.
So again, that goes back to, you said a minute ago about fast twitch fibers. You want to be working the fast twitch fibers.
Exactly. And going for a bike ride like I did in the Pyrenees, whatever, I'm not.
No.
I'm going to be much more in that slow twitch fiber. I'm doing 100 Ks, whatever. Yes, okay, sometimes I was riding 40 Ks and we just did a 20 kilometer uphill. And we're giving a lot of power, but it's not really power like it is in the mogul. It's still grinding, you know. So it's really important that you think about what it is you're trying to achieve, and then see if from there, speaking to good coaches at your level, because I don't know who this person is, what would the coach come up to? Now, Helen Goddard, obviously she did say a lot about, it's nice to hear somebody talk about eccentric movements, because we discussed this before. And I argue within skiing, it's one of the missing factors that people don't understand is how important eccentric movements are. And in future ski videos and things off the hill, I'll tackle this more and more, so stay tuned for that.
Good stuff. Cool. There you go. And the last one, it's about ankle fitness.
Andy got tired. See, that's why we don't trust him with a computer, because he just started to lie back there and go to sleep.
I need to do some eye exercises.
That's probably why you're tired, because you did eye exercises.
Ankle mobility, flexion, and is it a good idea to warm up the ankles before we go skiing? Is a question from.
Go on, say that name.
It's all the way at the top of the page.
He's not even going to get close. We'll just apologise now for Andy's efforts. Yeah. So he says,
yes.
He actually watched an old video of mine regarding ankle and.
Is it Illich?
Milovic.
Elijah?
What's the video?
Ankle and lower foot. So it was a video from the gym about ankles and lower feet. And is it a good idea to warm these up before skiing?
And I said to him, it depends. Because again, some people, when they run, if, for example, when we look at the different archetypes and the different positions that the body should be to get into according to, biomechanics and science here, if somebody, for example, let's say, cannot go through a certain dorsiflexion and plantarflexion movement degrees, or they cannot bend, let's say, their big toe. So, your big toe can flex up over. Let's say that big toe doesn't flex up and down when you grab hold of it and you can't bend it up to 90 degrees. If that doesn't happen, you wouldn't be to run mechanically sound. And what would happen is you would slowly start getting injuries in either the knee, most likely, or the hip higher up. And often the knee gets the pressure because the knee's stuck between your ankle and your hip, and it's at the mercy of those two joints, really. So if there's an issue with a foot, yes, you should address the issue with the foot. But a lot of people don't. When I measure their ability to move their big toe, their ankles, etc., they don't actually have that problem. What they tend to have is a problem with not having a strong tripod of the foot. And this is something which I think we'll get into maybe on the hill a bit, where we start to talk about the benefits of a footbed in shoes, for example. So it's long argued, I'm a barefoot person, so I tend to avoid any type of heel lift. So most shoes that you buy will have a heel ramp lift.
Angle,
yeah. And that ramp angle is important for a lot of people because they lack the dorsiflexion required to squat, to run, to walk. But of course, it's also helping that person, but it's hindering the person because it's never ever improving because they're using the product, if you like, to become a second ankle joint. Whereas really, if they got rid of that product and started to train, just an hour a day at first, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's like, for example, I remember the first time I ever did a barefoot running session. I couldn't walk for 3.5, 4 days because my foot wasn't used to the impact. My foot wasn't used to that type of strength required and movement, etc. It really shocked me. So if this guy, for example, feels that when I think on this video, I'm bound to have done an ankle test and said, can you do, let's say, the 5-inch rule to the wall, or can you do this flexibility test? And if you fail that test, then it's probably a good idea to start improving it. But as I've said before in other videos, we have to remember, even when I've had guys, and I was measuring older guys, mechanics in dorsiflexion, they were appalling, terrible. But I said to them, that's not going to stop you skiing. Why? Because there's a massive ramp angle in a ski boot.
Yeah.
And you can basically cheat the system. Yes, it would be great if you had it. But equally, when we talk about yoga and things like that, we often get, with the yogis, we get a bit wound up because they have the opposite problem, where they don't have any torque. Because they can squat to put their bum on the ground, they can stick their leg up onto their ear or whatever, but what they end up with is no end range, what we call. So sometimes somebody who's tight in their hips or their ankles or their whatever, than their glutes, can actually have more torque force than somebody who's just super flexible and super, and this becomes an issue where we see this hyperflexibility in certain joints, let's say the knee joint or the hip joint. And people who are hyperflexible will probably tell you, yes, they have a looseness. Sometimes they end up with problems in later life. So it's really important when we say, should this be used as a warm-up? Again, my question is there something more important for this guy to do before that? But if that's the most important thing, do it as a warm-up, But actually, I do have a video, and I should post it on what I do as my daily warm-up before I go on the mountain.
Cool. Good stuff. There you go. Sorry I can't pronounce your name. But yeah.
Good question.
Good question. Keep on coming.
We'll talk about fitness a lot because I think both of us identify how important it is to have a good ski season is what you do before that ski season starts. We're talking season, of course. Some people are just talking 6 days. Yeah. But equally, it's as important, isn't it, that they have some sort of fitness before they come.
We've said it before and we'll say it over and over again. Even if you're just going on a 1 week ski holiday, and possibly more importantly, if you're going on a 1 week ski holiday, do a bit of training before and you will have a much better time for it.
Yeah, and try to follow some advice about what is fitness, because this I've discussed before about the 10 factors of fitness and discussing on what they actually are. It's not just being one-dimensional, and just because you're a fantastic, bike rider, it's not going to mean you're fit. You're missing certain parameters as, let's say, a long-distance runner. I just talked about the importance of power, speed, agility. If you're just somebody who can run 20, 30, 40 Ks, you are going to be lacking speed and power.
Yeah, we spoke about, I can't remember which video it was, but we spoke about this, didn't we, about the kind of the need for an all-round training regime. And we talked a lot about bodybuilders who are absolutely massive, but they can't run. They just can't
Which comes back to the start where we started from, with a guy saying, just ski to get better.
Yeah.
Well, he's right in a way, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be skiing, but you will get to the threshold of where you are really good at carving and whatever it is. Then you get to the moguls and you think, I am crap at this skill set. Why can't I do this? Well, yeah, because again, it's a new skill set, and the mechanics involved in that skill set need to be addressed often in the dry land, off the hill, so you get an understanding and a grasp, because you're not 9 years old. Don't get me wrong, kids do not need to be thrashing themselves in the gym when they can do this. They can just play sports to get better at sports a lot more than an adult can. An adult needs support because we've had years of abuse on our body where we've not been doing anything.
There it is, another one. See you on the next one.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye for now.